Hey everyone, happy Friday, happy April 1st. Thanks for joining me for Broadband Deployment News. So the federal government is announcing $97 zillion to deploy broadband to Mars, and Elon Musk and SpaceX, they're stepping up to do that. Or perhaps it's 1.2 million for tribal broadband on this planet. That sounds more likely. Be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Broadband Deployment News. That would be nice to have broadband being deployed to Mars, because that would mean maybe people were living there and all, but that I think is sometime in the future. So today we're going to be talking about what's going on here on Earth. And as I mentioned, the federal government, specifically the Department of Commerce, says they've awarded nearly $1.12 million to tribes to expand internet access here on this planet. The Department of Commerce's National Telecommunications and Information Administration, that's the NTIA, announced today it has awarded 4 grants as part of the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program. So the NTIA is the same agency that's going to be managing all of the money we're looking forward to as far as the bipartisan infrastructure law that passed in November of last year. So they're going through the process right now, making sure they get all organized for that. But there are still past programs that they're managing, including this one. Nearly 1.2 million that's being awarded to 3 states, California, Washington, and Wisconsin. These grants will fund broadband infrastructure deployment projects to expand internet access to the Cabazon Band of Mission Indians in California, Forest County, Potawatomi community in Wisconsin, Port Gamble Escalante tribe in Washington State, and the St. Croix Chippewa Indians of Wisconsin. I apologize if I messed up any of those names. Across the country, too many Americans don't have access to reliable high-speed broadband. This is especially true for those living in tribal communities, said Alan Davidson. Alan Davidson is Assistant Secretary of the Department of Commerce, and he's also going to be overseeing these new funds from the bipartisan infrastructure law. NTIA's Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program is playing a crucial role, meeting the mission of closing the digital divide by expanding internet access to tribal communities and connecting them to schools, healthcare services, business opportunities, and more. So the Tribal Broadband Community Connectivity Program is what this program is. Again, it's an existing program that was part of, let's see here, the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program was funded by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. That's an act that passed at the end of that year to kind of consolidate lots of different things that were on the plate, one of which was tribal broadband. Another thing that funded was the emergency broadband benefit. That was the $3.2 million fund that was for affordability, where people could get at that time, a $50 subsidy, or I think it was 75. Yeah, I think it was still 75 for tribal in that case, and that was applied as a subsidy that service providers could provide if somebody signed up for that, if they qualified for that. That has now been absorbed by both the emergency broadband benefit and this tribal connectivity program have been absorbed by the bipartisan infrastructure law, that's basically the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that was signed by President Biden back in November. So these funds that are being let out right now are still from the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program that was part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. The application period for that is closed, but there are these additional funds coming. As you see here, President Biden's recently enacted infrastructure law provides an additional $2 billion in funding for this program as part of a historic $65 billion investment to expand broadband in communities across the U.S. You can see here they give a few details on where this money is going. So we've got $320,000 going to 17 unserved Native American households, which comes out to about $19,000 per household. So I hope somebody's looking at that and determining, do we really need to be spending $19,000 per household? Now, it could be that these are way off somewhere, very rural, hard to reach geographically, or maybe the topography. That's just a lot of money for connecting up 17 households. Then you've got $125,000 approximately proposed to provide reliable broadband service to the tribe's critical solar arrays. This would be for the Potawatomi in Wisconsin. And that's to support economic and workforce development capacity, in addition to improving the tribe's resilience through increased telework capabilities. Then you've got for the Port Campbell tribe to construct both aerial fiber and underground fiber to the home to 69 unserved households, in addition to 118 households that are under construction and scheduled for occupancy in early 2022. So that's about 443,000. That comes out to, I did the math earlier, a little over $2,300 per house, or per drop, basically. And that's more like it. That's closer to what you see when federal funds are given for these kinds of things. For RDOF, for example, that's kind of an average amount on RDOF that is quite often per location. And this would be at speeds 5 times greater at the same price that is currently available through commercial vendors. So we don't know what they have there now. 5 times, we don't know. If they've got 200 megabits per second, 5 times would be a gig. So maybe they've got 200 megabits per second. It might be something more like they've got 20 or 30, and they're going to be up to maybe 300 megabits per second. I'm assuming, because I would think that they'd be fairly unserved if they're going to be getting funds for this. Then you've got the Chippewa Indians in Wisconsin. That's 302,000. Will fund the installation of last mile fiber that's designed to bring qualifying broadband to unserved Native American households, businesses, and community anchor institutions in the rural tribal community of Round Lake. Doesn't say how many households, but it says that's where the current DSL has been a limiting factor. And that's quite often the issue, is that in lots of areas, rural areas where you had a incumbent telephone company and not a lot of subscribers in that area, they're still on DSL. If there were a lot of subscribers, then a lot of times the telephone company would upgrade their service to fiber, because they could pay for that by having more subscribers to pay, obviously, the recurring fees for that, and that helps fund the deployment. You're getting paid back much quicker. But in these areas that are very, very rural, you still got a lot of service providers that have got DSL out there. So a lot of the federal funds that are coming, from these tribal programs, as well as ARPA, RDOF, what else is there? Rural USDA Connect, the Reconnect program from the RUS, and of course the bipartisan infrastructure law, the $60 billion, approximately $42 billion from the Broadband Equity Deployment and Access Program. Those funds are all going to be targeted to those folks that have got, they consider unserved to start out with, which is 25 by 3, or underserved, which would be 100 by 20. So they're going to target those first, and quite often, like I say, it's in areas where there are not a lot of customers, and that's the reason that they don't have good broadband now, because there's just not enough subscribers for it to make an economic case for a profit-oriented company to go in there and do that. So this will provide the funds to help build that out. And then it needs to be maintained, obviously, so that's another factor that needs to be taken into account. But this will help, obviously, in these tribes, and I think we'll be seeing more of these kinds of announcements, closing out some of these programs that are in place right now as the NTIA gets ready to do their notice of funding opportunity for the bipartisan infrastructure law, and that's coming up in May. So we should see that NOFO for that in May, which is going to provide a lot of details to the states. Those funds are going to go directly to the states. I think there will still be, there'll still be funds going directly to tribal groups, that $2 billion in that tribal program, but as far as the vast amount of that money, it's going to be going to the states, who then will be, even right now, they're engaging with stakeholders in their areas to determine where broadband needs to be improved, who's going to do it, how they're going to do it, those kinds of things. So that NOFO, again, comes out in May. The broadband maps come out sometime between June and the end of the year, depending on the feedback that the FCC gets back from service providers, and then challenges and all that kind of stuff. So lots going to be happening here in the next few months. It's going to be real exciting. So hope you will join me as I do these broadcasts. Thanks for joining me today. Go ahead and give me a like on the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you're not. Ring the little bell and you'll be notified, because again, a lot is happening, and a lot's going to be happening here over the next few months with the Biden bipartisan infrastructure law as that all starts to roll out. Again, happy Friday. I will see you next week for Broadband Deployment News. Bye-bye.